Welcome to the Employment Wednesday podcast with Yvonne Shabangu. Have you heard of the scripture Hosea 4, verse 6? My people perish because of the lack of knowledge. The same applies to your career. When you don't know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, you are likely to make wrong career choices. But worry not. Employment Wednesdays is here for you to offer you all the answers relating to your career and offer you strategies to develop your career. Enjoy. Hello everyone. You are welcome to another episode of Employment Wednesdays. This is the last episode of the year. Hey, Sipushile, we tried to get the episodes out because you guys were crying. Bentetema, no, don't do the once in 2 months and all of that. So we tried to give you something. I hope you guys enjoyed the episodes because I did. For those that were loyal, showed the love and all of that, I really, really appreciate you guys. I hope you'll come back for season 5. If you haven't been watching, I'm judging you. Go and binge. You know, the information is timeless. So today I'm sitting with one of my favorite girlies. It took a year to get her here. So if I'm not here, I'm working. I'm trying to find people for you guys. But I'm sitting with Zindatu. She's going to introduce herself. Oh, and co-host. Sorry, guys. Like, I've forgotten, man. I'm on a borrowed seat. So today, it's the three of us. It's a special episode. It's the last episode of the season. So we thought, why not do it together? I'm seated with my co-host, Tando Lwetu. And then I'm also seated with Zindatu. Zindatu is our guest. She's going to introduce herself. Hi, ma'am.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Zindatu Mazamane, and I have a background in urban and regional planning from WITS.
Okay.
I took that up to honors. Then I recently graduated with a master's in urban management, also from WITS. Right now, I work as a bid manager, I suppose, also taking care of operations, fulfillment, or service delivery.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, nice stuff. Hey, I've been fundile. Educated girls worldwide. Hey, Nina, we are inspired. We're led.
Thank you.
It's really like the people that we have around us that actually make us want to do better and become more. So I truly appreciate everything you are, and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. You're going to make me cry.
So before we go into it, how's everybody doing? How are you, Leti?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
And nice to see you. And hello everyone. As you can see, I'm back. This time Yvonne and I will be doing a duet, I guess.
Yeah.
We're so excited. I mean, this is our first jointly hosted
I'm on the
show.
hot seat.
Yeah, you are. And yeah, so you're gonna be double teaming her
Yeah.
with questions. Okay, let's start. Thank you for telling us about, your background in your current work. I think when I looked at what you do, I was like, this is amazing. We finally have a Black child who's in the regional and like town planning or just planning for space in our country. And since we lost so much space during apartheid when they were
Yeah.
taking land from us, I wanted to know what exactly our country looks like as somebody who's studied, I'd say the geography
Yeah.
and like the planning and the infrastructure and everything. How does our country look right now from a planning perspective?
Okay. Hectic. I do want to premise this by saying I'm not a practicing urban planner.
Okay.
I did study that, but
Okay.
just in terms of land, unfortunately, it's still not looking good. Most of the land, and they would say agricultural land, sits with the white population. The Black people don't own majority of the land. Most of the land that's owned by Blacks is under government ownership. So there was various policies that were meant to redistribute land to Black people or sell land that was sitting with white people to Blacks. But unfortunately, it was called a willing buyer, willing seller, where willing, white farmers would then sell land to willing Black farmers or Black people, but they would inflate prices, which were far more exorbitant than the actual value of the land.
Yeah.
So that didn't necessarily succeed. And then there was a policy it's called a land restitution, where you take land that was stolen from families and reinstate it back. That process has been very slow and unfortunately also riddled with corruption. So we have a situation where Black people still don't own land.
Yeah.
And you do see Black people still living in townships mostly or peri-urban areas that
Yeah.
don't necessarily have much economic activity. Yes, we do have an emerging middle class that can afford to buy land, but even the banking system is systemically meant to discriminate against the Black population. So unfortunately, that process isn't yielding much anyway. So
Yeah.
you'd find areas like your Danefens, for instance. I mean, you do see Black people moving into those spaces, but for
Yeah.
the longest time, they were excluded systematically. They couldn't be approved for loans. They would be disqualified from getting land, even though for the same amount of land at a different place, they would get it. Like I remember in Pretoria, even with rentals, you're excluded from, renting at a certain place because
Yeah.
they would say, oh, they need 3 months rent as deposit. And there's no Black child who can afford that, especially if you're starting out with work. You know
Yeah,
what
no
I mean?
way.
Yeah, you're looking after your families. I mean, that was the case with me. So I couldn't be in a situation where I could ask my parents to help me or had saved 3 months rent in advance.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that wasn't conducive as well. Or they would, even if you do have that, they would say, oh no, the place has been taken. I remember doing an experiment with my white colleague and I got them to call. And they were like, yeah, sure, the place is still available, but unfortunately it isn't. So you do still have these systemic ways of excluding people from
Yeah.
ownership or even just merely accessing through rental agreements.
Okay.
I know I've said a mouthful.
Yeah.
but yeah.
No, that was beautiful. I think it makes sense and
Okay.
it totally answers what I was looking to hear.
Yeah, it is quite power packed, right? But however, I'm very curious. It seems like the subject, in essence, it's sort of, I'd say, for a lack of a better word, it seems like it's an elite subject, studying urban planning and all of that. Why did you study it? Like, I mean, you could have, like, I feel like you're a big creative, could have been writing drama, movie scripts and all of that. But why choose urban planning? Like,
It's interesting you
intrigued
asked that. And I wish there was a more substantial reason, right? But I didn't know what I wanted to do after matric, but I was in this special program. Having gone to a township school, we didn't really have a lot of exposure to various careers, right?
Okay.
So there would be these special programs for high-performing students. And high-performing, I say that in quotation marks because relative to where I come from, it would be laughable compared to someone who had gone to like a St. Mary's, Regardless, we're put into this program and they would have people talk to us. This guy there, and he was cute, and he told us about this profession, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, And he said, oh, this is the future of where the country is going, especially because we've just come out of apartheid. Maybe it had been 20 years or so, right? But we are still trying to promote spatial integration and integrating Black people into the economy, and planning was seen as this profession that could facilitate that integration.
Yeah.
And promote equality as well on a more, infrastructural, economic, institutional level, because it marries so many fields. And I was like, oh, I do want to see myself doing this. And that's how I got into it. There's no other reason.
Yeah. So what would be the formal or just widely accepted definition of urban and regional planning?
Okay, so I would describe it more than give a definition. So I would say urban planning is really about managing how cities work. A lot of times people would think it's about, establishing new cities or urban areas, whatever. But cities have already been established. But unfortunately, they don't always work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah.
And they can't just work magically. Imagine City of Joburg, for instance, has 12 million people here, over 12 million people. There's infrastructure included, road infrastructure, railways.
Yeah.
There's buildings as well. There's people, different kinds of people, poor, rich, the middle, and various parties that are doing business here. Like it's a place where people come for socioeconomic opportunities. And like I said, there's various interests that can be competing at times. So it was important to have this profession that almost marries all of this to make sure that, cities can function to achieve a certain objective and try to marry all of these, moving parts or different aspects of cities so that it works well. So urban planners or urban planning practitioners then help to manage how cities function.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you then the people that decide, okay, in this area there's a lot of people, we now need like adding on like a mode of transport, like more buses or
Yeah.
what is it, Ria Vaya? And are you guys responsible for such things?
I'm
Or
glad
people in the
you-
industry?
Yeah. I'm glad you say that because as I was, coming here, I was thinking about that. But ideally, you'd want to think about that before it happens.
Okay.
So Johannesburg is a little bit different because they just found gold and everything sort of spread after. So
Yeah.
it was a reactionary type of response.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would like to plan. So Midrand is a bit more planned than the rest of, city of Joburg because they were like, okay, we've got these nodes, Pretoria, and we've got Johannesburg and this middle
Yeah.
area. So how do we make sure that, because there's definitely going to be growth here, right? How do we make sure that we can provide the underlying infrastructure that's required for this place to thrive? So then government would start thinking about placing the infrastructure, which would be roads, water, underground. And developers own the land around Midrand. It's not owned by government or individuals. So developers have to put in the capital to build
Yeah.
like your waterfall cities and stuff. But it's a collaborative process with government. And in order to enable that process, there has to be like a conversation to say, we'll put this so that you promote growth. But government also, through urban planners, comes in to say, as developers, we need to manage your interests as well because you are concerned about making money, generating profits. So they'll put these apartment buildings
Yeah.
that are costly. Obviously, they're targeting a certain demographic.
Yeah.
But we also have a mandate to promote equality. Remember, I mentioned
Yeah.
spatial equality because
Yeah.
of the segregation we mentioned.
Yes.
But now a certain, percentage of the units that you're developing have to cater to a low income household,
Oh.
and that sort of thing.
Is that why their brochures will usually have like very low, or if you have sort of three options, you'll have very low sort of prices on the other end where it's maybe 500K for those units?
Yeah.
Because I've seen that and I'm like, you guys probably could have just had expensive ones only.
Altogether,
so why did
yeah.
you just insist on having
You
cheaper
have
ones
to
as well?
balance it. Otherwise, all the low income households would just be excluded to a Tembisa
Yeah.
or in Alexandra or a Soweto, which doesn't help to fix the issues of
Yeah.
the cost.
Equality as well.
Yeah, the equality
Man,
issue.
shout out
do you
to
know
you
what I mean?
guys.
I mean, it doesn't always
She
work.
did say it's an interesting.
Yeah, we
now
would
that
have
I'm
been
thinking about it,
stuck
I'm
in
like,
the
okay,
hood.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
So the interesting thing you mentioned about Ria Vaya, right?
Yes.
Because we already have Soweto that exists, there's nothing we can do there. And unfortunately, the middle class didn't want to invest in Soweto because, again, we don't have much economic activity and infrastructure is lacking. So the enticing parts are in the north. So government then came up with the idea. It was inspired by other cities. Like there's in Brazil, for instance, Curitiba, it's got one of the best BRT systems. So then we implemented the idea to try and integrate peri-urban or townships to the inner city. And this was meant to be like buses that come frequently and they fast, they don't get stopped by traffic,
Yeah.
those kind of things. That way you can kind of integrate people, so human settlements to economic activities, to schooling districts, to whatever other opportunities we come from
Yeah.
or we come for in cities as opposed to just being excluded on the outsides. But unfortunately, the densities in South Africa are sprawling. They're not going up. So there isn't enough population along the corridors, the BRT corridors, to support those rapid buses. So the buses were meant to actually come at every 30 minutes or during peak hours,
Yeah.
even shorter periods of time. But we don't have a lot of population to support that, even though there's like 12 million people here.
Yeah.
But they so spread around. So the efficiency then of the bus system isn't economically viable. Yeah. Whereas in the cities where the BRT system works really well, their densities are going up. So it's like multi-story buildings, which means the densities within a short space of time are quite significant. And there's many people who need movement throughout the day. And that's not the case in South Africa.
You know what I find very interesting? I feel like it also boils down to our economy, unemployment rate, and all of that, right? Because I think if our economy was as functional, like very inclusive, a lot other people have jobs and all of these things, I think there would be movement in terms of people utilizing like the buses and all of that. But now we have a good number where people, okay, they have cars or they use your how trains or taxis, whatever the case may be. And then we have a big number where, again, people are really poor and they're really struggling. They don't have jobs, so they really can't participate in the economy as much. So I think it's very interesting how one small problem or big problem at the top, it just spirals everywhere. It boils down to everything else.
I love that I'm getting goosebumps as you're saying it, because that's exactly what urban planning is about, right? One issue with cities has a sprawling effect to so many other aspects.
Yeah.
Think about building a city, for instance, without a proper sewage system that affects people's health and well-being, but also like the quality of life is affected. Without public transport, it affects your ability to get to work, and to earn a living. You know, so your safety as well is a big part of it. And what you're saying does touch, you know, at the heart of what planning is about. And the hope was that, you know, through integrated public transport system, you are able to then reduce the number of people who rely on cars, and then we can get to the cities. But unfortunately, because of the issues I've mentioned, you're unable to do that. And I think another issue as well is we don't have good integration between the various forms of public transport system. So the bus works almost independently. It doesn't work, you know, in collaboration with the Cisco, not the Cisco, but what are those other metro buses?
The metro buses.
It doesn't work also in collaboration with the railway trains and whatnot. But if the stops were organized or designed in such a way that when you get off here, you can get another transport system, or there's one card that you can use across, as opposed to using cash here with the taxis, or using you know, a card for the metro bus, but then it's different for the Gautrain bus, for instance. It's a lot of admin. And even with public transport, like I remember when I used to use taxis from home when we lived in Soweto, I'd get off in town. I'd have to walk for a certain distance at night, and that's not necessarily safe to go catch a Gautrain to Pretoria. There, I'd have to Uber home. So there's no integration from point A to point B. You're losing a lot of time. And it's different, you know, cost implications as well for doing that. And the safety aspect. So the planning isn't as great as we would like it to be. But also public transport is a contentious issue in South Africa because Black people weren't necessarily catered for, especially in cities, right? We know cities like Joburg developed because of mining, like I mentioned, and Black people only came here to support the white people to work in the mines as cheap labor and stuff. So they were not necessarily catered for in terms of public transport. That's how taxi drivers then came about. It's a uniquely South African mode of transport. It is efficient in that it can access the very corners of a township that a bus cannot, for instance, or a train cannot. And so it's very difficult to also do away with those taxis because you're also threatening their livelihood. If you bring buses, I remember there used to be strikes. What alternative do you have for that economy? Because that's how most households survive. You know, so even with the meter taxis, like your Ubers, and it's a threat, it's a direct threat to taxi drivers. So how do you mitigate a situation where you're potentially threatening people's livelihoods, you know? So yes, part of the reason why the integration of public transport system maybe is the failing of urban planning as a profession, but also there's contentious issues on the ground that threaten people's livelihood. And so you do have to balance. And you can't just like take a solution from Brazil, which I had mentioned, and place it here and expect it to work exactly the same because our socioeconomic context is different, our history is different. So you still need to balance the different interests.
That's so true. That's so
Yeah.
true. Because I was dying to mention, I was fortunate enough to go to Europe last year. And one thing they have there is a brilliant transport system. There's trams, there's trains,
Yeah.
and as you said, it's all timed very well. It's all coordinated. Your card for the train works on the bus.
Yes.
It works on other modes of transport as well. But one thing I loved that they had was a timed card for your trips.
Okay.
So you can, especially as somebody who's traveling, you can buy for a fixed price a card that will
Yes.
allow you to use public transport for maybe like 48 hours or something like that. And when you were mentioning how we need to look at the context of the society, I'm looking at that and I'm like, if you brought that system to South Africa, I'm buying that card. After I use it, because I know I
give it to
won't use
someone
it,
else.
I'm selling it. I'm not using it.
Exactly.
We will have
That's typical South
we will
African
have 100 people traveling on 50 rand for 48
Absolutely.
hours. No joke.
No, that's actually the reason
Actually,
why
you're right.
Uber didn't work in Nigeria.
Really?
Because they would like buy a different SIM card and like
Every time
register
get
for the
these
discount.
free.
Yes.
Yes.
It didn't work. They were trying all sorts of ways. It just doesn't always work.
No, I hear that. You know, in wrapping up this transport issue, I also want to say something that may be a little bit controversial. I think our priorities or our validations are quite different, like looking at European countries and African countries. So like, for instance, we all want to buy cars because cars are deemed
Yes.
you're successful.
Yes.
So the idea or the thought process of using a bus or train, it's sort of associated with indlala, or like it's like you're not
Yeah.
as successful.
You haven't made it.
Yes. Whilst in Europe, you could be a CEO of whatever, or you could be doing so well, but you'd rather opt for transport, for train, because it's faster, it's efficient. You know, you could be working in the train and it's
Yeah,
safer and
yeah.
all of that. They don't like cars and stuff like that. It might not be as validating for them. But for us, it's like, why would I park my car to take a bus, you
Yeah.
know, and all of that. So I think, yeah, there are a lot of, it's so brilliant that you mentioned how socio-economic issues are different
Yes.
in different countries. And I think even state of mind, thought processes, what we see when we view things as well.
Yeah.
100%. And I think a part of it though, outside of the status that comes with having a car, public transport systems in South Africa aren't properly maintained, unfortunately.
Ooh, yes.
So you might be going to a meeting here in Sandton, next thing you've got a stain, or you know, your shirt got caught on a door, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Okay, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a serious issue. And I know with trains as well, so some of the systems are dilapidating because they're not properly maintained. And unfortunately, we do need to invest money into making sure that we maintain. Gautrain has done that really, really well. And that's why you see all sorts of people using the Gautrain.
Yeah.
And because it guarantees that you're going to get to a place at such and such a time,
Yeah.
when there's a delay, it's not so significant that, you know, you're disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And another thing to the transport thing before we wrap it up, it would be, based on how things are, unfortunately, it wouldn't be viable for me to go to the rural Eastern Cape with public transport, right? Unfortunately, we are migrants in the city.
Yeah.
And that's a uniquely South African thing
Yes.
as well. Or
Yeah.
like maybe with countries that have been colonized, you've moved away so much from your rural home or your place of origin that during December, when we're all migrating back to where we come from, the only mode of transport is through, you know, using a comfortable, like a car.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't have trains that can access each and every town like that. Only towns that have major economic activities where there's trains that are transporting coal, like your Emalahleni or car parts or whatever. But my small rural town, Ntabangolo, doesn't have a train, and we don't have comfortable buses, you know, and they don't even go down to my rural area. Like, I have to be in a kuka.
What is it called?
A
Is it a
van.
wheelbarrow or a van?
No, like a van and squished with other people carrying chickens.
Okay, I
you
hear
know?
that.
I was about
Okay.
to say goat.
Yes, also there's chickens, yeah, you know, so that's
No,
not always
I
possible.
hear you. I hear you. Comfort
Yeah.
and convenience. So yeah, socioeconomic factors do play a
Yes.
big part, and like obviously location
Yes.
and many other factors. So I'm quite interested in why you went to the university down the road.
Yeah, what's with siding with those guys? I'm sure UJ
Can I
has a
tell
good
you?
urban planning
I'm
program.
sure UJ has produced the best of graduates in urban planning.
I'm sure we
Can I
built
tell you,
everything you
this is a
see.
salty
Actually.
story.
Shout out to Rao.
No, listen, I'm still so salty because UJ rejected me before I even wrote my final exam.
Are you for real?
Around September, like after I'd applied, they rejected my
I'm
ass.
sorry.
I thought that was like, where I was going to go. My sister was going to UJ. And at the time, there was a perception that it's easier to get into UJ. They rejected me. They didn't even wait for the final. I was so salty.
I'm sorry.
In grade 11, Boyens, and were you playing? Because, yeah.
Fair, fetch me.
Because I know those grade 11 results. And,
They matter.
And I think this is a very educative point for people that are in grade 11 right now. I'm sure you've written your exams, or if you're in grade 10, you're going into grade 11. Take grade 11 as serious as you can. Because then it holds space for you in uni.
That's
so
true.
the higher your marks are in grade 11, you
Yeah.
hold space. Then in grade 12, it's just confirmation. So if your marks are average or they're not as great, then it becomes a little bit hard for you to secure space. And I've noticed, I don't know if you guys saw it, or it's just me, guys, everybody is graduating cum laude.
Yeah.
Like people are taking school very seriously. So now I feel like it's no longer that thing that you have a group of 10 people where academic validation is a thing. Now people are going to school and they're actually doing the most. So I think it is very important to take your grades seriously, especially if you're applying in uni. Even if you're not, but I think, stay in school, do the most. Yeah.
Just to add on that, I mean, yes, my grade 11 marks were not great.
Are you going to defend yourself now?
No, I'm like affirming her to say, yeah, okay, that was my fault. But like,
I know
guys,
UJ
wait
is
until
not
the
as
final
bad.
marks.
Yeah.
But another thing as well is, if your marks are not going to be great, you're already out. You're not even in the competition. Because kids are doing well. Like what you're saying, everyone is graduating cum laude. Even in matrics, kids with great marks aren't getting placement in schools because it's that competitive.
Yeah.
So you really don't have an alternative if you don't even work hard. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you need to make sure that you're excelling where you can.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're already out. The other alternative is private universities. And unfortunately, those are expensive.
Yeah.
And people with my background cannot afford that. Like
Yeah.
I barely made it alive at Wits with, NSFAS and a bursary. And my mom's still trying to put in some money. But now imagine if you go
Yeah.
to like, I don't know the private universities, but they're a bit more expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're right in that point. I'll take it. They could have waited until December.
Okay, and I think Yvonne really appreciates this line of questioning because her whole goal is to actually help people get jobs. So if you have a urban planning and regional planning qualification, what's the menu of jobs you can do? Like, what exactly
Yeah.
does your future look like?
Yeah.
What can you choose from?
Sure, it's interesting you asked that. And I know I say interesting a lot, but it's things I was thinking about as well, right?
Yeah.
And this is both a blessing and a curse. With urban planning, because you don't necessarily specialize, you do a menu of subjects. You can go in either field. I did
Okay.
economics, I did civil engineering, geography, which you mentioned, property economics, planning law. There's a whole lot of things that you can do. Maybe not work as a specialist, but the disadvantage is that you're competing against people who are specializing. But I think in this age where specialist jobs are maybe under threat with AI or, artificial general intelligence, which
Yeah.
is gonna replace cognitive function, it's important that you try and be an all-rounder, if I
Yeah.
can call it that,
Yeah.
right? And invest in your problem-solving skills. And I think planning adverts really did that well.
Yeah.
We weren't taught how to do a job one way. You had to apply your mind about how do I solve this problem and make sure that I take into account context, right? So you can go into research, you can go into town planning. Town planning is more administrative, so you might not enjoy that
Yeah.
unless you are a technical person. You can be an urban designer. So urban designers do draw quite a bit. unlike architects who draw buildings, you can draw like at a much bigger scale.
Okay.
You can go into politics as well, policy making. I've done a bit of policy.
Yeah.
That's something I really enjoyed. Like there really isn't any limitation, like I
Yeah.
said, because you've got these soft skills, problem solving skills, being able to think on your feet, analytical skills that you can apply literally in each and
Yeah.
every area. When I think about the people I went to school with, there was this girl, Tando, she worked in transport planning, but later went to Geneva. I don't know what she was doing.
Yeah. Shout out to Tando.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there was a friend of mine, also Tando, another
Shout out
Tando.
to Tando
Yeah.
again.
It's Tando everywhere.
Yes.
Tando.
She was lecturing in the US. There's other friend. She's not a friend. Well, I suppose friends.
Yes.
Loosely. She's a director at COJ. You know what I mean? So there's like a whole lot of different jobs that you can do outside of planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have everything at the top of my mind right now, but like I think about the people I went to school with. We're all in different places. You can even start your own
Yeah.
consulting, firm. I did right after school. I worked as a development economist,
Okay.
and I used to do studies that assess feasibility of projects. Before a project can be approved and you spend money, you assess the viability to say
Yeah.
socioeconomically what's the impact of this project. You can go into environmental stuff as well. Like cities have huge carbon footprints,
Yeah.
and they produce a lot of waste. Not just with tangible waste but polluting the water as well. There's so
The
many
air,
things
the
you can go.
noise, all
yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
all of that. So managing that and making sure that cities are still compliant with the regulations in terms of managing their waste.
Yeah.
That's also another area that you can go into. Like there's so many aspects.
That's a beautiful list.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I think maybe they also did regional planning and stuff because they're very articulate. But there's a guy on Instagram and all his page does is he goes on Google Maps, he looks for intersections, road intersections that are like all over the place.
Yeah.
And his job is to fix them so that the traffic can flow better.
Yes.
And he does like a really good job because he'll pick maybe a
Sure.
5-lane intersections where there's 5 lanes going this way, 3 lanes going that way, and he'll really put in the right roundabouts, the red
Yes.
lights, and he'll explain how now people from this side can move faster. You can reduce accidents if you structure it this way. So I think the design
Urban
part,
designers,
was
yes. Urban designers
very-
do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very principled because
Yeah.
he wouldn't just be like, oh, let me just reshape the road. He would
Yes.
really explain how if you change this curve this way, it
These are the
contributes to
implications.
this.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it was just one of those things where you can see how even at a very small scale, maybe if you're somebody that's fascinated by this career, you can just choose one small thing that you
And
feel
focus
like,
on it.
yeah, I
You're
do this
right.
better than everybody.
And I think another thing about urban design, because they work with spaces, you want to facilitate a certain experience about space, right? It's not
Yeah.
just a vacuum, but what feel do you want people to get? Like, what's the outcome you want? You would notice, you mentioned being in Europe, in some stations they would play certain kind of music, and that's associated with reducing, a state of relaxation, and therefore criminal activity is reduced. So those are the kind of things, like intangible things you think about. Like if people at this intersection walk here, and when you have your walkway, we like squares, but then you can very much clearly see where people walk. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like there'd be a track where people walk
Yeah.
and a pavement that's allocated for where people are meant to walk.
But people walk on the
Yes.
Wait,
side.
I think I have a good example for this one.
Yes.
Maybe it's not a good example, but Sandton City, just
Yes.
before you go into the taxi rank, there's a sports bets place there.
Yes.
They've even put seats outside there so that their customers can sit and watch like the games as they. But I'm like, this is a pavement. We're supposed to
Yes.
be walking here. This is
doesn't
not
make
your sports
sense.
bets
Yeah.
area.
Yes.
Yeah, I hear
So
you.
it's important that like you actually observe how those design elements affect the space and the usage of it, because you want to make sure that people use spaces, they use public spaces, but yeah, I just think that's fascinating.
It is. You guys really do. You studied cool stuff. It also seems like a career path that does open your mind to unlimited imagination. So I like how modest you were, because I think this is the part where you were supposed to tell us how you're part of the people that, is it a policy research
Policy review.
policy review, the one on COVID. Some of
Oh,
us after
yeah.
COVID were crying about the after effects of vaccination. Other people were researching.
Yeah.
They were authoring stuff. You know, so
Yeah.
I thought you would mention that. How was that process? Take us through your research, right? Because I do feel like COVID-19 did quite a number on us. It did feel like, well, I wasn't there in World War I or II or whatever,
Yeah.
but it felt like a different type of war. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was against everyone.
Yeah.
So it wasn't us fighting each other. It
Yeah.
almost felt like there was a higher aura fighting all of us, you know. From your research and what you've done, how has COVID-19 impacted the career employment landscape, if you came across any impacts as you were doing your research?
I'm getting goosebumps as you're asking that. You know, and you were almost equating this to a world war, whatever. My mentor, who actually brought me into the study, said human settlements are where COVID was being fought. And initially, human settlements as a chapter wasn't included in the COVID-19 research, and she fought for it to be included because that's where isolation used to happen. Suddenly, human settlements or homes became where people work also. They became offices, they became daycares, they became hospitals for people to heal from, and yet we're supposed to cook and live here, you know, and have our well-being in these spaces. So there was a really significant impact on various, you know, groups. But in terms of employment, unfortunately, I would say we saw a regression in gender equality, where married couples, for instance, a woman would be expected to still, you know, cook and clean and take care of the kids because you don't have the help anymore. You don't have daycare anymore. So those activities naturally fall on the woman.
Yeah.
Even though she'd also have to be sitting on Teams until 7. If you remember very well, like we would have to sit on Teams calls past, you know, the working hours. And
Yeah.
I think to a certain extent, those expectations have remained.
Yes.
Now there's like blurring of lines between, you know, what's considered to be an acceptable amount to work versus a hardworking person. Like there's an expectation that if you aren't still working at such and such a time, then you aren't working hard enough. And I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, there are times where you'd still, you know, invest time and whatnot to catch up on the work and make sure that you meet your deadlines. But when it's an expectation, then that's wrong because you aren't also being compensated for. So back to the regression, we saw that in terms of gender equality, I mean, it's a huge issue that we've been fighting for in the workplace. Women have regressed, and you have some of the women that we'd interviewed. In fact, we'd interviewed an architect for this special dynamic of the COVID-19 impact, and was talking about his wife does all of that, and she had to quit, unfortunately, because she couldn't balance the demands at home with the demands from the job, because both of them and the kids crying in the background just didn't work anymore, right? And we know in terms of, so this might not necessarily be applicable to your audience because it's people with higher levels of education, but one that I'm particularly passionate about is that there's the industries that were mostly affected are dominated by women. Hospitality, informal trading, domestic work, for instance, retail. Okay, retail, a bit of that was still open, especially if you were selling food, but other forms of retail were affected, and people had to stay at home and they lost their livelihood during that time. And tourism wasn't even a thing at the time, and that's where most women work, in Airbnbs and hotels and stuff. They lost their jobs and they lost their livelihoods, and we know 44% of the households in South Africa are single parent households by women. So that means those families didn't have a livelihood. You get into debt, it affects everything, you know, and now, like, I remember I was also affected during that time. And as I was trying to apply for accommodation, that stint did affect me. They were like, oh, you've got this in your credit record. And it's a huge, area of concern. And I was rejected in so many places. Now, can you imagine people who couldn't knock off, like who couldn't bounce back as quickly because they were like their livelihood was affected. So COVID really did have, serious implications on jobs. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but those are the examples I can think of.
You actually answered it well. Another thing that I noticed is that so after COVID-19, a lot of big retail companies started closing down. Like a lot of people,
That's
I think a
true.
lot of big companies struggled to come back. And those were jobs lost.
Yes.
Right? Now we have a situation, we fighting AI to grow and stuff like that. Corporate jobs could be under threat, but also we have those jobs like retail does cover. Unfortunately, as I was doing my research, also a huge number of South Africans are in the informal sector. Few people are working like corporate nice office jobs. So as those retail stores were closing and all of that, also people were losing out on employment. And it also goes back to now, a lot of the people work is again an escape for them because sometimes you stay in a very small apartment or you stay in a 1-bedroom apartment, it's 5 of you. If everyone is going to work, at least people are breathing and stuff. But you find that if now 4 of you don't have a job, all of you have to sit in that same place that is not big enough for you.
Yeah.
And then also you need to try and get food and all of that. So yeah, COVID-19 did do a number.
Yeah. And I mean, I think since you guys, well, yourself, I'm saying you guys as if you guys are a group. I think since you guys studied how we live and move and are spread across, the country, do you feel like COVID sort of stifled some of the improvement or progress we would have made just on the infrastructure and maybe even on the resource side?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what we potentially might have missed out on? Do you know of any projects that were going to be implemented, but then COVID happened? Like, what would have been different if we didn't have COVID from a planning perspective?
Simon, that's a difficult question.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you got to wonder.
Question. But I'll tell you something. So COVID-19 was declared a state of emergency, right? And when that happens, funds have to be repurposed for that particular disaster. And that means everything was rewired to fighting COVID-19. If you remember very well, there used to be grants that would be given to people, I think low-income households.
Yes.
And people who didn't have jobs, but also people who were employed as well. I remember for 5 months, my employer couldn't pay our salaries in full because our projects were halted as well.
Oh, yes.
Which links to your question. So government then would, subsidize some of those salaries and stuff. That's money that could have been invested in various types of infrastructural projects, although I can't list them. I remember even with our projects as well, like, everything had to be at a standstill. Because all the resources are diverted towards fighting this virus, and also procuring, procuring the vaccinations and stuff. It was a lot of money that was, stolen. Oh, I'm revealing something. It was a lot of money.
It was stolen, some of it, to be honest.
It's because in my mind I'm thinking about PPEs.
When you talk
I'm
about
thinking
stolen,
about
I remember I was thinking about how so I don't know if we're still in debt. I could be wrong. Allegedly, I remember during COVID, apparently the World Bank had to keep borrowing African countries' money.
We are in debt. We've been long before.
So I'm thinking about it, man. I'm like, COVID-19, like people are in debt, individuals, but also the country is in debt because of COVID-19.
Guys, even the United States is in debt. So it's like indebted
We're all
to
in
who?
debt.
You know what I mean?
You know what? And I know none of us may not be able to answer this, but I've always struggled with the logic. When you're saying you owe the World Bank, who is
The World Bank.
Who is the World Bank? Who I don't know who's the chairman. It's one thing when you say, okay, I'm indebted to FNB. I know FNB has shareholders and all of that. So I know somebody's going to get a profit from me and all of that.
Yeah.
If you're indebted to the World Bank, they charge you an interest. where does it go
Who's
to?
the beneficiary?
Yes, who
I think
are
we
the
should get an
beneficiaries?
economist next.
Yes.
And not just a small time one, like a season.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
all the stuff.
'Cause
Like,
I'm always wondering, like, who's the beneficiary of this World Bank thing? Tell us in the comment section. What do you think? What's your thought process around
Yeah.
that? I'm very curious about something. How is I know you mentioned different things people can do with the degree or with the education, but how is it'll be such a disservice if I don't ask about money. How is
money.
like the financial progression, like the financial stability of it? Is it financially viable? Like right now, if a person who's in grade 12, grade 11 says to you, hey, Zintatu, I don't know what to do. I need to, I need to look after my family and all of that. I need something that's going to make me money, even if
Yeah.
it's not urgent, but I need a good career that's going to help me boost my family and stuff. Would you recommend it?
No.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Because there isn't a clear path. And like I said, you are competing with other
Yeah.
people. You'd have to be exceptional and you'd have to like sell yourself really well to stand out to employers. They don't always know what to do with you, right?
yeah.
And there aren't a lot of spaces in South Africa where you know they're open to trying new things. Like they just know one way and that's the way that they recommend. And when you're starting off, you're probably going to start off as an intern. It's not always guaranteed, like, you know, with lawyers, wow, you have to do your articles, or like with accountants and stuff.
Yeah.
After that, you've got like a guaranteed growth trajectory.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise it, but also I think in terms of where skills are going, I'd really advise people to go into tech. And it's not because I'm in a tech space now, but it is the foundation of everything in society. You know how it functions now with with urban planning, for instance. There's GIS specialists and everything is digital. And like it was so interesting for me for this project we're working on to see how tech can or urban planners can also find a role in tech.
Yeah.
Like, you know, designing tools for budgeting in the city, you know what I mean? And that's based on their spatial understanding and their understanding of policy around
Yeah.
governing space and, you know, converting that to this tool. So I'd say rather go into tech. With tech, you don't need to be studying for years also. Like you can literally just do a certificate or a course for a year or two, and chances of getting employment, not just in South Africa, but across the world, while you also, you know, where you are. Like you don't have to move to get a US-based job or a
Yeah.
Europe-based job. With tech, it's easy to do that. Unfortunately, it is more expensive and it's not things that are easily available through mainstream. But I also think it is a solution to the challenge that we're having now with acceptance rates at
Yeah, at
universities.
universities,
Yeah, so you can literally go to open source platforms and teach yourself even, and then you get the certificate that can get you a job with a US-based company, or you get what do you call the people like who place you in jobs?
Yes,
Yeah.
a
Help you find
recruiter, a recruiting agent.
Yeah, recruiting agent. And now with tech, you don't even need like an internship of sort. Like you get to, you know, to learn and teach yourself. Once you work on a project, when you learn that interview, you can show them, hey, this is what I've done. You know, this is how I've improved. These are the tools and systems that I'm using to teach myself.
Yeah.
I may not have had clients, but this is what I can do. And so with tech, I find it's important to be able to do the thing. Like qualifications for me aren't the thing that matter anymore. Like I find a lot of South Africans have so many qualifications, but they don't understand their job. Like they don't add value.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. And we're always complaining about, oh, but there are no jobs. And I understand that in part, but also there's certain things we can do as well to
There's
make sure
a
that
skills problem as well.
Yes. So with tech, then I think you are able to mitigate some of those challenges and like teach yourself at home and be able to market that skill in the marketplace for getting a job that's going to earn you really, really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like that. I like the honesty as well.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm all for people like Yvonne did, using social media to really show people what their talents are. And I think that's why I mentioned the guy that I was talking about who fixes intersections, because it's not something hard to do. You just need to have a system of how you record, how you find the videos and all that. But like after that, you can make a video that can impress anyone. And then when you're there looking for a job and they ask for something interesting
Yes.
about you, it's like, hey, I
This is
know,
what I've done.
yeah, I know so much at least about this one thing that just give me a chance and I'll
Yeah.
show you more. So I really appreciate, how you've outlined it and how honest you were. And I don't know, you said don't study it, but if I was still in matric, I'd go. I'd go
It's
study
studying,
it.
right? Like I think it's a different form of study.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
know studying to be one way. It has to be through the university route.
Oh,
But there's
yeah,
many other avenues to study. And unfortunately with university, it's not promoting a well-rounded experience with kids. It's just, I need to get this degree and it's going to be the solution I'm looking for. We've got an issue with unemployed graduates. And it's a reason for that. Yes, maybe it's two-pronged in that we don't have jobs.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
also we don't have tradable skills. Like, you know,
Yes.
there was an article recently about how young South Africans are not employable. And that's a real thing because you have graduates that you employ who have these qualifications but can't add value within an organization.
Yeah.
The attitude is not right. You know, the example you keep bringing up about this person, he had to be proactive and say, I'm finding this problem and I'm going to fix it. Young people don't do that when they get to jobs anymore. And it's important to be able to raise your hands like, how can I assist? What can I do? You know, and this is not to say young people shouldn't be paid for their labor, but sometimes you have to do what you've got to
Yeah.
be skilled. You know what I mean? When people can't afford to pay you Imali that's going to afford you that car and that nice apartment in Midrand, volunteer anyway and do the job, you know, get that experience. And I think that only comes because of attitude. And that's learning on its own, but it's a
True.
different approach to learning than through the classroom.
And being creative. Because I
And
mean,
being creative.
yeah, I look at it now and I'm like, if I was just so passionate about how my world looks around me and I wanted to go into urban planning, I just go around my whole neighborhood counting all the robots, all the missing. No, I'm serious. Counting
Yes.
all the missing dustbins that are supposed to be there, the bad pavement. And then I'd go check how much budget was allocated to our municipality.
Yes.
And I'd just be on their necks for
You know
5
what I
years.
mean?
Just the
Yes.
main audit. I audit on the ground. I, my
Yes.
camera, I shoot everything I see. I'm like, look at this.
That's
and I do it
definitely
for
get
5
their
years. After
attention.
5
Yes.
years, you got
No,
a career.
that's good. So time went by so fast.
I know.
Like this was so cool. Like we're
I know.
literally getting used to each other. It felt like, you know, when you meet your cousins for the first time, you haven't seen them. And then 3 hours later, when the ice is broken and you're having a good time, and then your mom is like, it's time to go home.
I know.
You're like,
Yeah,
it was
that's
getting
true.
comfortable here.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Zintatu, for honoring our invite. I've truly appreciated your value. And I do hope that people at home have learned something on this episode. And then I think I really love, you've actually reinforced an idea that I wanted to implement in the next season. When you spoke about how we do have a problem where universities, like, I don't know what's happening in schools and universities, but it seems like the university does not have capacity for all the students. And then also there's another thing, this thing that you have to be excellent, which is a good thing. You have to be excellent. But what happens to kids, for lack of a better word, or pupils that are not academically gifted?
Yes.
You know, what happens to people that can't go to universities or that don't qualify? You know, so I think we also then need to be inclusive of them, because I do understand we bring different types of people here who have degrees on degrees. But what about those that really have no interest in degrees, or that, they have an interest, but they can't. They don't have capacity or ability to. So I really like how you nudged that. I'm going to go and do some homework, and hopefully we can come up with some solutions and conversations surrounding that. Guys, thank you so much for supporting, for watching. And just like that, we have come to the end of the season. Love you guys down. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. And you guys don't use thank you, King. Thanks. You must use thanks Christmas. You send me Christmas. Thanks 5 rand. Thanks 3 rand. You know, truly appreciate you guys. Any last word?
No, I've really had fun with you guys. Thank you very much to Yvonne as well, as well as to you guys for the opportunity. I really feel like I'm ready to be on SAPC now.
You're ready.
Yeah, the only reason is that this show is bigger than
Guys,
So like, you know, I mean,
okay, love that prophecy.
before I tell them about the offer that you gave me, like 7 figures, guys.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year and everything. Keep sharing the podcast. I'll see you guys in February or March. Love you guys down. Bye.